I did this once and I had no sound, so I'm hoping this works this time. I'm gonna have this technology thing down. You guys are my guinea pigs, unfortunately. So I wanted to go over the Abstracted from Nature project a little bit more, especially for those of you that are at home and I didn't get a chance to discuss it in person, but even for those of you who may have heard me say it once, and I'm gonna talk about it a little bit again. So basically you're looking at something from nature that inspires you. So I'm gonna see if I can find our source images that I included. These guys. So in the project itself, if this will open, we have these source images of these really interesting textures and structures from natural objects. Doesn't wanna, nope, don't wanna do that, sorry. I might be, no, not now. So basically, it's a really easy way to start by looking at some of these things that do exist, that I'm giving you images of, but I'd really, really like you to go out and find your own things that you find inspiring. Okay, that's not gonna load for us, so we're just gonna skip that for now. Come back to camera. All right, so I really just want you to find something from nature that is interesting to you, and really break it down, like really look at the things about it that interest you. So it doesn't have to be one thing at the beginning. It can be a multitude of things. In the description, I say, go outside and find things, or go to the grocery store in the produce section and look at some of the things that are there. Go to a greenhouse if that's your thing. But if you know that there's something that really interests you and it's not going to be around here, then find really, really good images of it and really start to dissect those. And just think about the things those particular items that interest you, and do sketches. Do a series of sketches. So I want you to start with thumbnail sketches and then maybe build on it a little bit from there. So why do we sketch? We sketch not only to help figure out what we're going to make and how we're going to make it. We sketch really to generate ideas, because the reality is that if you dive right into making the thing, then that's going to be your first concept that you're making, and you're not going to have really developed the idea much. If you work it out on paper first, then you start to think of different ways that you might actually do this. Like, oh, what if I did this, but I also did this? It's just honestly a way to jumpstart your brain. It's a way to make us start thinking about the project itself and how we would construct it. And it slows us down just enough to really ponder different ways that we could approach it. Because otherwise we kind of just, our head is kind of spinning. So sketch, sketch, sketch. If you're not good at sketching, then write out ideas along with your sketches. So your sketch might just be a ball and you have to describe what that ball is all about. Like what's actually going on with that. Because you might be better at making it three-dimensionally than you are better at sketching it. So I'm gonna show you where I started with this. So I started with the idea of an orange, and I'm really hoping that this is gonna open for me since it was being so fussy just a little bit ago. It was already open, so that helps. So I started with an orange, and I basically really broke it down. So I actually photographed it rather than sketching it, because I was trying to kind of rush through this part of it in order to present stuff for you. But honestly, if I was doing this as a student, I would maybe do some studies of the orange itself and all its different incarnations and its textures and its surfaces and its structure. So one of the things about an orange that really does fascinate me is the structure, which is why my first slide was that segmented piece. The idea that it's a ball, but it's created, it's constructed out of these different little like wedges. It has this very sort of geometric or almost architectural inside, as a lot of natural objects do. So, and then you start to look at like the texture and the little nubbin that, comes out of that end all the time. One of the things that I really, really like is the pulp that's inside. I think the pulp is really, really fascinating. And these little like fibrous strands that just are very reminiscent of cell structure, of muscles and fibers in the muscles, and I just find them really fascinating. So you'll see that I actually took a lot more photographs than I have here, but I wanted to give you like sort of the ones that sort of showcase what I was thinking about. So just some of the things that are really kind of beautiful about an orange, honestly. So, but I kept coming back to this pulp, and I found out, because this is the way my brain works, so I was looking up, I had already eaten the one orange, and I was doing some additional drawings, and I was trying to find out how many wedges are actually in an orange. So I looked up something about the interior of an orange, and I instantly got information about these guys, and I found out that they are called vesicles, and they are actually a derivation of a hair follicle. So in another organism, that would be a hair follicle, but in an orange, it's the little juice sacs. So these are my sketches, my little thumbnail sketches. You have to do about 15. I did 30, and it took me like 15, 20 minutes of just like drawing out the stupidest ideas and some decent ideas, and some of the drawings that look really cool in reality didn't look as cool in actual things. So like I don't think I can, this guy down here, see if I can find a highlighter kind of thing, sorry. Orange, yellow, there. Okay, that's good. So I really like this guy down here, but creating that really perfect circle out of clay, not so easy to do. And again, I kept coming back to the vesicles, these guys. So like this, and this, and those are my big ones that I really liked. Even this, for my idea for that was to actually put, you can sort of read it, put the texture of the inside of the rind on the outside of the orange. So that kind of worked, kind of didn't. And then I worked on some bigger sketches, but I'm not going to show you those because they're terrible. But just like trying to like work out the idea a little bit more. Because like I said, one of the reasons that we do sketches is to really look at what is, like to really generate ideas. It's not just about studies, it's about generating ideas. So this is where I ended up going with this. Let's see if I can do this. So like I have this guy who is very, I don't want to disturb him right now, but I'm going to turn him sideways. I think I can turn him sideways. So because of the hair follicle reference, I put a little texture in there that is very hair-like, a little homage to the origin of the vesicle. And then, so I kind of actually started doing some balls first, and I had ideas for those, including that one drawing that kind of looked like a segmented, and you can see this kind of sort of looks like that, but not completely. All right, so I started with these guys. Really, when I really started to generate my ideas and get rolling on it, I started with these guys. Started making all these little vesicle guys. And the idea was that I was kind of ball them into a ball. And then I changed my mind about that, decided to really kind of like pile them on top of each other. And so when that gets firmer, so I basically dipped each one of them in water until they were really sticky and then piled them on top of each other. And then we're gonna see if it holds together. It might not. And if it does, then they're not gonna stay in a pile like that. They're gonna get turned kind of sideways, and I'll see if it stands. And if it doesn't, then it doesn't. And then I was working on the spheres, which I ended up not really liking. And then I ended up making this big sort of sweet potato looking guy that also looks very muscle fibrous. Because like I said, one of the things about those things that interests me is the fibrous part of it, but they kind of look like muscles. This is still wetter than I want it to be. But you can see he's got a little bit of shape. So it is solid right now, but I'm letting it firm a little bit before I try to hollow it out. So by the way, my cushions are just like old couch cushions that I found in people's trash. So I'm gonna start like from a point here, and I'm gonna actually start carving out the inside of this, so that it's hollow, partially so that it is lighter and isn't solid, but also because I think it'll be more interesting. So we have our one with our hairy one with the giant vesicles sticking out of it, and this is very, very orange shaped and size. It's almost exactly the size of an actual orange. It probably is the actual size of some orange. And then I had this guy that had been solid, and then I cut it, because the other thing about these is that a lot of the sections of an orange, and when I was doing my drawings, they reminded me of science drawings. I don't know if you could see that. It used to be solid. I don't know if the camera was right or not. And then I cut that off, and then I started hollowing it out. But a lot of my sketches reminded me of scientific studies of things. So I gave it this texture that has nothing to do with the origin of this. And then I created some of the sort of orange segments, but also because this sort of started to remind me of okra. So I kind of took it, still referencing the vesicle, but also like this okra shape, and this sort of reminded me a little bit of a milkweed pod. But mostly I just thought it was a really cool, like it looks like one of those little science models in class, which is really kind of fascinating. So I have 5 things, and then basically once they're all done, I'm gonna pick the 3 that I like the most. And those will be my 3 that work together. Flip this around again. Now I'm too, let me see if I can crank this up a little bit. Helps if my handle is out for my thing. All right, so I'm gonna pick my 3 ones that I like the most. So one of the reasons that several of those are carved out is because at least one of your forms needs to be a vessel of some sort. I don't want it to actually be a bowl. I don't want it to be a bowl or a cup, but I want it to have an inside and an outside. So those are more obvious vessels in some ways, but like the bigger one, the sweet potato one, when it's hollowed out, it's going to be a vessel, but it's very obviously not necessarily a vessel. But basically, when we're looking at vessel, we're looking, does it have an inside and an outside? It doesn't have to actually hold anything. It has to visually hold something, if that makes sense. So we're playing with really not content as much. I'm not worried about you making some bigger reference to something in your life. I want you to play with what is visually interesting about things and altering it so that it doesn't look like that original thing, but it still you can still sort of find the origin of that thing in it. I want to know where it came from and how it developed and how it became that new thing. So we're working with a series of 3 smaller objects, each about the size of your fist. It can be a little bit bigger if that becomes easier for you, but really so besides this study in nature and you using that as a takeoff point, nature's a good takeoff point, honestly, because clay tends to lend itself well to organic forms. So that's why we're using natural objects. And there's a lot to choose from, obviously. But also the idea that 3 smaller forms can have the same visual impact as 1 larger form. So together, these should take up about the same space as like a large shoebox kind of size. It's not an exact science there, but about that. And we'll go from there. So I hope that helps, and I'm hoping to get stuff up about slab building. I had some sound difficulties, so I'm gonna see how that goes. And all right, this should get you started, I hope. Bye, guys.